And also, I don't see the chat necessarily, or so, I'm not going to relate to it. So I leave that over to the rabbi or Sharona or Kim, whoever's on. And if you have a question that you want to pump over to me, let me know in the middle, which is great. All right, now here comes that moment of anxiety when I press that share screen and hit that and that and boom. And I think it worked.
It did.
Okay, and let's just make that a little bit nicer. And we're ready to roll. Okay. So once again, thanks so much, because I'm getting a little stir crazy in here. So it's really great to see like real humans and talk to humans. So here we go. Where do we pick up from? Yesterday, we were right where the prompt is, right over here. We landed at the end of the day in Ein Bokek, which is the tourist area on the Dead Sea. I just want to give kudos to those in the morning. I know it didn't get around to everybody, but some of you who joined me at 5 o'clock in the morning, we were out of the hotel. 15 minutes later, we were starting to climb up, and we're 15 minutes away from this mountain. Has to be given credit. It has to be mentioned next to Masada. You can see over here the snake path coming up to the mountain. So we were at Masada this morning because we wanted to witness the sun coming up over the east, over the Dead Sea. I know a lot of you were just, last night we parked ourselves down at the Danielle, down at one of the nicer hotels down at the Dead Sea. As you can see, they know there's a dusty area, so there's no carpeting on the floor. It's nice rooms, and the best thing is the jump off your balcony into the pool. Don't belly flop on that one, it hurts. And most of you were up this morning staring early at the sunrise as it comes over the Dead Sea, and that's where we're gonna start our day. So grab yourself a bareka or a rugelach, which they serve in the hotels. And today, it's not Jeeps. Here's the sun coming up further, but we have boats waiting for you down at the dock. And let's start off on our day. So we're gonna be in the Dead Sea. Off the beaten path, there's no path here at all. We're all totally in the water. Exactly a little bit of a background on the Dead Sea as we're about to enter into it. This is a topographic map. I hope it comes through on the Zoom, but you could see that the Dead Sea is found right between the mountains. There's a spine of mountains that runs in the middle of our country. And right over here, the mountains just drop about 400 meters into the Dead Sea. On the other side, in the state of Jordan, you can see the mountains as well. And these mountains run in this direction. These are going to be the hills of Judah, the hills of Ephraim, the hills of Menashe. Over here, we're ready towards the lower Galilee. We see these mountains are just running all the way through our country. Here's the upper Galilee. This is going to be tomorrow. We're going to visit here in the Chula Valley. And this side's going to be the Golan Heights. Again, as we come back, mountains of state of Jordan today. In the Bible, to biblical times, this would have been called the area of Gilad, the area of Edom. This would have been Moab. So these are, you could see that's like a valley. Here it says Jordan Valley, Chula Valley, Sea of Galilee, Jordan Valley, Dead Sea. And then we go to the Arava where we were last night. It's like a little bit of a you can imagine it's like a little bit of a dip of a valley. It's like a bathtub in between the mountains on either side of it. That's running straight through the country. That's what's called the Syrian-African Rift. And we're going to see it again tomorrow in the Chula Valley. It's basically this idea that we have two huge tectonic plates. The surface of the earth is covered with these plates. Of the crust of the earth is the plates. And they come up against each other, and theoretically, they're alive, they're moving. Even though they don't move all the time, but there's pressures building up, and after a period of time, one of the plates will jump, and that gives you your earthquake. That's why it's tradition here in the country, we know about earthquakes along this rift. We'll have earthquakes up in the north in Sfat, right over here, where we're going to visit tomorrow. The earthquakes all along these lines. So this is what plants us right here between these two mountains, and that's where the Dead Sea is found. That's where we're going to start our show. It's very hot down there, and you go to the Dead Sea, seasoned travelers, this is on the beaten path. Everyone's, the shots of the whole bus sitting out there and just floating in the water. Why are we floating? Because this sea is 34% salinity. It's one of the thickest, the most salinity of any lakes in the world, and that's why you float. Just sit back, you float. And of course, you have these standard pictures. Then you got the show off, so have to read while they're out there. Okay. Here you can see actually building up against the coast of the Dead Sea. You got the salt. You see the salt rocks, which are as the water evaporates, the salt remains behind. You have these salt deposits, and it gets even more amazing as we go through. Oh, how did he get in there? People like to come to the Dead Sea because this is standard. You got your mud packs over there. But this becomes amazing now. This is beautiful. And it's starting to appear, and this is not a good thing. It's pretty to see it, but I'll tell you what's happening exactly. We're starting to have these are all salt formations, salt rock formations. And they're starting to appear, and they have been appearing for the last number of years all around the Dead Sea, little salt rock stalactites. And now you can start getting tours of the Dead Sea. Next time you're in Israel, book yourself in on one of these boat tours to go ahead and see these beautiful formations. They're not stalactites, they're salt formations that look like stalactites. Sometimes they come up, but depending upon what the material, what other minerals are inside with the salt formations, you have these, it even comes up as cubes. Most of the time it's these small little salt pearls, different colors depending upon what other minerals you have been picking up there. So this is something that's becoming newer. Look at this stuff over here, these like furnaces. All of this used to be covered with water, and that's the issue. Beautiful formations. And the problem is, the issue is, why are we all of a sudden seeing all of these? How has this created these salt formations? Because it used to be under the water, and it was constantly being bathed by the water, and the salt collected over the millennia. Now they're out in the open, and they do get destroyed. Why are they all of a sudden out in the open? For the same reason that along the coast of the Dead Sea, you can now start seeing these formations. What exactly is this? This is sinkholes, straight up sinkholes. One of my professors, when I was, this is just about 6 years ago in my tour guiding course, he lives down Eli Paz. He lives on one of the kibbutzim along the Dead Sea. And he's a geologist as well. And he goes out to the area, to the coastline of the Dead Sea, where he marks off sink lines that are developing. And what happened, he was walking one Friday night. He left the phone in the car, walking along, all of a sudden, boom, the floor opens up underneath him. He falls into a hole 2 meters deep. Luckily, he did not get hurt. And fortunately, his friends knew that he was out when he didn't return Friday night. They came to look for him. They found his car. Once they found his car, they started looking around, and they eventually found the hole that he was in. He was safe. He pulled him out safe. What exactly is happening? Why are we having these sinkholes? Well, if you understand what's the Dead Sea, full of salt, and they have those salt crystals under the water, and also under the ground, you have also this hole used to be filled with salt. Now, the Dead Sea used to go right all the way back. Here we see where the Dead Sea is nowadays. Yeah. But when they built the road, you drive on the Dead Sea, we'll be driving on it, right? The road, it runs at the base of the mountains. Here's the mountains of Judea. You drop 400 meters down into the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea used to be right over here. That's the road is built along the coast. What's happened over the last, about a meter on average, a meter a year, the Dead Sea is receding, drying up. So all of a sudden, this area over here that used to be bathed in salt water, which has salt crystals underneath the surface, the salt water is no longer there. When you have rains up in the mountains, they come rushing out of the mountains and they pass fresh water, rainwater comes passing by these salt crystals under the ground. They melt the salt. And eventually what you're getting is areas that under the ground where it used to be salt formations, that salt's melted. Nothing's holding up the ground anymore. And boom, you have this sinkholes, rather dangerous. There was one right near En Gedi that overnight the road just fell right down. Luckily, nobody was on it. And there's a detour, even till today, you have a detour when you get to En Gedi. What are we going to do about it? It's a problem. We have a problem over here. The Dead Sea is receding. Why is it receding exactly? So to talk about this issue, there's a fellow named Noam Bedine, I think, Bedian or Bedine, I think he pronounces his name. And he's the guy, we're on his boats today. He is a photojournalist, and he is taking he does the boat rides for his living, but he is involved in trying to raise the concerns about what's going on in the Dead Sea. And we know it's a problem. The government knows it's a problem. But at this point, it's kind of like, what are we going to do? Here you can see also they parked the boat on, and all this used to be covered with water. You have something like this. If you take a look, it's sticking out. Again, here's the Judean Hills. And you have over here these like rock salt chimneys coming up, and all these different formations. So it's a great boat ride. What are we going to do about it? The problem is that we can use this map. What happened exactly? Actually, let's go back here for a second. I hope this doesn't get anybody dizzy. But if we go back to this map, so what do we got? We have the Sea of Galilee. We're going to be visiting there tomorrow. Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret, that is our fresh water source. And then we got the water out of the Kinneret comes running down the Jordan River through the Jordan Valley, hits the Dead Sea, fills up the Dead Sea. Yeah, the only problem is that since the beginning of the state, we've been using the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret, for our fresh water, for drinking water. Way above 60% of the Sea of the Kinneret used to be just sent down in the pipes in the national water carrier and basically giving water for the entire country to drink. Thank God, Israel is one of the leaders in desalination. We have at this point 5 plants, I think there's 6 plants going online soon along the coast. Most of our water today is actually what we drink when we open up the tap. It's coming straight out of the Mediterranean. Again, one of the world leaders in desalination. The Sea of Galilee, today we only use about 25% of it, but what we're hoping is going to happen is like last year we had a great rain and we almost opened up the dam. We dammed up the sea. The water doesn't flow into the Jordan River. Last year was great rains. The water came right up to the spot where you decide to open the dam. They held off on it. We started off about a month or so ago. We had a couple of great rains. We said, wow, this is going to be another great year. And all of a sudden, I got blue skies like the rabbi wrote. We have 73 degrees tomorrow. It's a problem. If we get like 5 good years, rains and snow up in the Hermon, we could open up the lake, the dam at the southern base of the lake, and let it run down and refresh the whole Jordan Valley and start pouring into the Dead Sea. We're not near there. What's a possibility? I'm just going to mention this quickly because we want to get back on that bus. There's been ideas floated, such as connecting up the Mediterranean Sea with the Dead Sea, the Med-Dead plan. The water would flow through a channel that crosses the country. And when it comes over the top of the mountains, dropping 400 meters into the Dead Sea, you got places for hydroelectric power. Great plan. Great plan. The other possibilities we were yesterday down in Eilat, take from the Red Sea into the Dead Sea. You have the Red Dead plan. That was a plan that was floated. And who mentioned, I think Kim mentioned yesterday that when we were down at Kibbutz Keturah, that there's a lot of cooperation and coexistence taking place down in the kibbutz. That the Red Dead plan was also joint plan with Jordan, Palestinian Authority, and the state of Israel. It has not come, they haven't worked on it yet. Neither of these plans. Why? We'll understand that even better tomorrow when we go to the Hula Valley, because we're really concerned to mess with the ecology. Sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen. And we learned a lesson in a rough fashion when we drained the Hula swamp. We're going to talk about that tomorrow when we go to visit. And then we held back. We were able to rectify the problem that we actually created in the Hula swamp. Talk about that tomorrow. And we're scared to mess with the Dead Sea. What are we going to do? Well, at this point, we're just praying for water, praying for rain, that we should be able to open up the lake. And that's where it stands. Something's got to be done shortly. It's basically the lake, the Dead Sea has receded 70 meters. It hurts. It hurts to see it, but we'll keep you posted. Hopefully there'll be some solution coming up. So with that having been said, we're going to get on the bus, pack up our bags, get on the bus, and we're going to head out from the Dead Sea in Ein Bokek. We're going to cross the country, short ride. We're going to go to Beersheva. Beersheva is a wonderful town. On the beaten path of Beersheva is Tel Beersheva. It's an amazing, it goes back to First Temple period. It's an amazing underground water system. Fun place to come and visit. And you have here traditional 4-room Israelite homes from the First Temple. We're going back And in front of Tel Beersheva, the ancient Beersheva, is actually not this well. We have other wells which date back. This well does also the Canaanite period. Is this a well that Abraham and Sarah came to when they want to get some fresh water? This you'll find in Beersheva. This is part of the traditional visiting sites. But to go into the city itself and see what's happening in Beersheva itself, that's a little bit off the beaten path. Beersheva is not the sleepy town that we all sort of grew up with. It's been connected up for the longest time with railroad. Highway 6 comes right down into it. And Beersheva, albeit it still is a smaller town, only 250,000 people, but it is growing. And it has right in front of us is the major shopping mall in the middle. The big, they call it the big. And Israelis like to do that, right? They like to take English words to name things. And Beersheva, the Ben Gurion University, really has got a good name. It's growing, the medical school down there. A lot of things are happening in Beersheva. Universal Jewish language. What's the universal Jewish language? Oh, if I only had bought 20 years ago. That's Beersheva. We should have bought 20 years ago. Just like when we used to visit Tzfat. My wife and I, when we made Aliyah, we used to visit Tzfat. You could have picked up hovels in the old city of Tzfat for nothing, for pancakes. Nowadays, can't find anything even for sale. So what's going on in Beersheva? Beersheva, there's what's called the Beersheva dry river bread. This is what it used to look like just a little bit ago. And what we have here is basically, you look at, this is when it rains in the winter, water will be rushing through here. But most of the time, again, we're remember that, we're at the cusp of the desert, of the Negev desert. Not going to get that much rain. So we have over here, what did this become? I think if you look well, what can you see? Well, I see a couple of old pieces of junk and garbage and whatever else was thrown in there. Basically, this dry river bed that goes right to the middle of Beersheva became over the years a garbage dump, like a junkyard, and also because of backed up sewage, it started smelling. It was not a good thing for a city that really, self-respecting and wants to grow. Beersheva has been blessed, by the way, also with an excellent mayor. So here, I know Kim is going to be speaking about JNF projects afterwards. I'm not going to get into it in that much detail, but like I said yesterday, if this wouldn't be a JNF tour, I'd be talking about JNF anyway, because they're down there in the peripheral areas. And here's an example where they took this mess and they cleaned it up, making a beautiful, like a central park that stretches through the middle of Beersheva. You have along this riverbed, which nowadays looks, I have a picture of it someplace, that you have walking trails and bicycle paths, green, just green, green, green. You have, it's 8 kilometers of green running on either side of that river. That's a big change in the city, in the flavor of the city. City's really growing nicely. Part of it's also the amphitheater that you have over there. This is called the Pipe Bridge. There was a request for different architects to put in their plans for a nice, cute little pedestrian bridge, artificial lake, amazing things going on. And we also have employment center, and there's the idea to be able to open up Beersheva. In Israel today, the young couples, really can't afford the middle of the country. And the country Israel has been working heavily on the infrastructure. Like I mentioned, the main highway 6, runs down towards the south, connecting up Sderot, which you're going to visit in 5 minutes or so, and going all the way up north. They've now extended it pretty much up to the north of on the western side towards Rosh Hanikra. The train, again, another one of these ideas that we should have bought 20 years ago, like the train from Haifa, the train that runs along the coast now actually around Haifa, below, shoots out towards the east, crosses Beit Shan, towards Beit Shan, opening up all different parts of the country. And for my daughter, one of my daughters, she's a social worker. My son-in-law is a physical therapist, good jobs. But they said they're not going to buy in the middle of the country and be strapped with a mortgage that's going to be with them for the next 30 years. They moved a little bit south into the areas that are the periphery, got themselves a beautiful house, beautiful view, and with something they could handle and hopefully pay it back in a short while. So that's what's happening in Israel today. And we're just like expanding the country, expanding the settled parts of the country. JNF comes in because they support a lot of the infrastructure and help with the construction of newer places for people to move to. Very quick, this is what we're talking about, this the Beersheva River Park, just like a really, just scratching the surface kind of an idea of what's going on over there. Ecological park, right? Changing a garbage dump into something that's going to benefit all the people. Just to give you a short idea, that's all.
אנחנו נמצאים בפארק נחל באר שבע שנמצא במרכזה של העיר באר שבע. במקרא הנחל היה מקור החיים. בשנים האחרונות לצערנו הנחלים בעיקר בדרום הפכו לפח אשפה של העיר. לכן כל כך היה חשוב לקרן הקיימת עם השותפים עיריית באר שבע ורשות הניקוז להפוך את הנחל שהיה שנים מפגע לנכס.
קק"ל יזמה את הקמת פארק נחל באר שבע כחלק מפעולותיה להגשמת חזונו של דוד בן גוריון בנגב. זהו פרויקט שכבר מחולל שינוי אדיר בבאר שבע. פרויקטים כמו פארק נחל באר שבע ופארקים נוספים שאנחנו מפתחים בנגב הופכים את האזור לחלופה אמיתית למרכז.
אני מאמין גדול שבעזרת שיתוף הפעולה עם הקרן הקיימת לישראל, כאן בלב הנגב יוקם פה פארק לתפארת מדינת ישראל.
Okay, very, very nice. So that's what's going on. You know, you talk about not only Beersheva growing. When we went down yesterday into the Negev area, it's the main part of the Negev is still pretty desert. It's tough, but down in the Arava, we saw yesterday, it's really this idea of making the miracle of making the desert bloom. We're witnessing it with our own eyes. It's really fantastic. We're going to head now. We're in Beersheva. In a second, we're going to head out towards Sderot. We're not visiting. We're not going up to Lehavim Rahat. I just wanted to put it on the map. It's close to Beersheva. Lehavim Rahat is actually one of the cities of the Bedouin cities that we have down in the south. With the establishment of the state, there was many Bedouin tribes that were here in the desert. The Bedouins are Muslims, but they're not tied in nationalistically. They did roam. They used to have camps and they would be roaming in the desert. The state of Israel has been challenged to establish, you know, to change basically a way of life that's been going on for centuries. And they have established, the state has established numerous cities, one of them being Rahat. And here in Rahat, what is over there? That's SodaStream. This is great for discussion that you can have. SodaStream, this is the plant that you find in Rahat. This plant was actually moved from near Ma'ale Adumim, Mishor Adumim. Mishor Adumim is if you would just like leave Jerusalem, head towards Jericho, towards the Dead Sea. It is officially in the West Bank, Yehuda v'Shamron, wherever you place yourself politically, right outside Jerusalem. And that's a good question, what's going to happen. But SodaStream got pressured by the BDS not to be there in the West Bank. What they did, unfortunately, there's 500 Palestinians who were working in SodaStream. SodaStream is an interesting company. Since its inception, it's really been concerned about ecology. I mean, their advertisement, I don't know if they're being cynical about it, but their advertisement is instead of constantly using bottles and dumping them out, reuse their hard plastic bottles and make your own soda. But they have from the beginning, the inception of the company, they've been working on healthier brands. That's why PepsiCo actually bought them for $3.2 billion in 2018, because PepsiCo was interested in what they've been accomplishing in their healthier brands. And so what they did is they moved their SodaStream factory down to Rahav, which is a Bedouin community. And again, this concept of attempting to have coexistence. Bedouins are citizens of Israel, but that you should have both Jewish workers and Bedouin workers working together. In the army, a lot of times the trappers are Bedouins. When I was in the army, we had the fellow who always sat in the front of the Jeep with the driver was a Bedouin. So they do serve in the army. And it's an attempt to keep people from minorities who are part of the country, who are citizens, have them feel inclusiveness. And, you know, I think what I understood from reading a little bit about the history of the company of SodaStream, that it's a sincere, that was part of the beginnings of the company. And I think they're trying to do what they can. So here's the insights, a large company, a large factory. They have a number of factories around, and that's just to be mentioned, as you head down to the southern areas. Okay, with that having been said, we're gonna now head over from Beersheva, a short little trip over to Sderot. Okay, now if you look at this map already, what do you see over here? Gaza Strip. That's this little strip right over here along the coast. Sderot is right up against the border. It's a kilometer off of the Gaza Strip. Just to give a little bit background as we're about to enter into the city. Our Hebrew word of the day for the people who live in Sderot, it's got to be ometz, courage. They're very courageous people, very amazing people, and let's see why. A little bit of the background. Okay, after the ceasefire lines, this is a 1950 armistice line with Egypt, 1949 armistice line with Jordan. This is what our country looked like until 1967. In the 6-day war, all of a sudden, the Golan Heights, the West Bank, or Yehuda v'Shamron, whatever you call it, and the Sinai Peninsula became part of Israel. We made a peace treaty giving back Sinai to Egypt. That was Begin and Sadat. When was that? 79, was it? And Egypt did not want to take back Gaza. So Gaza left. We were left in Gaza. This is the discussion of today. Golan is still belonging to Israel. The United States, Israel annexed the Golan. The United States, recognized annexation. That's a discussion. What's important for us right now is that in 2005, Israel unilaterally moved back from Gaza to what was the 1950 recognized, the internationally recognized armistice lines, or the international border of Israel. And that's what we're dealing with now, because in Gaza, right after we unilaterally left, Hamas, it was given to the Palestinian Authority, but Hamas was voted in, and and that's when the story of the rockets begin. So with that little background, before we get to the rockets, this is what we're challenged with nowadays. I don't know if this hits the news over there in America. You're probably connected in. So, but the challenge today is sometimes not only rockets. These are helium balloons, and being that Gaza's on the coast, the wind's blowing in off the Mediterranean, blowing towards the east. You get these helium balloons, connect to the bottom of it some kind of incendiary device, and you just let go. It's the simplest, costs nothing, and it comes across the border, flies across the border, boom, lands in the fields around Gaza, what we call the Gaza Envelope, Otef Gaza, and causes tremendous amount of damage. And that's hard, we could shoot down missiles in the sky. How do you shoot down balloons? It's difficult. The Army's trying their best. They have certain things that they're working with, like laser shots and drones that will catch up to the balloons and knock them down. It's an attempt, but it's a challenge. Here's an example. I don't know what this thing is, some kind of bomb or some sort, but a lot of helium balloons will lift this thing up and it lands in the fields. That's a problem. We'll see what happens with that. What's the concern? More deadly. This caused a lot of damage, but more deadly is going to be the missiles. Okay, so here's what happens. You got missiles coming out of Gaza, and this is today. Missiles from Gaza could reach pretty much a good portion of the country, if not almost all of it. And you got, from the time that the missile goes off, let's say my daughter, this one I was talking about, who's married to, who's the social worker, they moved down to Ashkelon, okay? The very first night, they lived in Ashkelon for a while. The very first night, all of a sudden the sirens go off that there's a missile attack. Now, according to the map, what do we have? How many minutes? How many seconds? They're given 20 seconds, okay? That should go down any second there, 20. They're given, you can't see that. Okay, they're given about 20 seconds or so, or 15, 30. They're given 30 seconds to be able to get into their protective room. That's what they got, because they're in Ashkelon. So they basically just slept. They slept the kids in their protective room. They didn't live in Ashkelon all that long. But 30 seconds, okay, you count on the clock. Okay, we could deal with that. What have we done? Now, if you live in this area, which is known as the Gaza Envelope, you only have 15 seconds. If you're living in these areas, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 60 seconds after the siren goes off to make your way into your bomb shelter, okay, you got a little bit more warning. What's our country doing? What's Israel doing about this this issue of the missiles? Well, that was the development of the Iron Dome. All right, the Iron Dome, amazing, amazing super technology. Iron Dome really has kept us safe. With the help of God, but the Iron Dome's kept us safe. The challenge of the Iron Dome is it's expensive. I hear different amounts. I'm not sure anymore, but it's like upper in the tens of thousands of dollars for a single missile, and you shoot 2 missiles every time you see something incoming. That's been giving us a dome of protection throughout the country. What do you do if you're living in Sderot and you got 15 seconds to get into the bomb shelter? So here's our first stop. We're in Sderot. We're going to get off the bus, and for 15 seconds, it's not going to be enough the Iron Dome won't work within 15 seconds. It's not enough time. What are we going to do? So first of all, we're now standing. We got off the bus. We're in Sderot. We're standing in front of the police station. So at the very beginning, since 2005, I think there's way above 20,000 rockets that have been sent towards the Gaza Envelope. The ones that you see here with the fins on them, those are ones that are from Iran that have been smuggled in. The other rockets are from local production. So this is an ethical issue that we come up with. Here's a perfect example. Where do you think in Gaza, Hamas got hold of this material to make this rocket from? So usually when we're in front of the police station, I'm usually leaning against a street sign that's held up, a circular street sign. Yeah? This is over here. This is piping. This is circular. This is street signs. Where do you get the rocket propellant from? Well, if you mix fertilizer with sugar, don't do this at home. Don't try this at home, but fertilizer with sugar, you're going to get yourself rocket propellant. It's a challenge. We have 970 buses, 970 trucks going in every day into Gaza from Israel that make sure there's no humanitarian issues down there. But we have these, ethical. What do you hold back on sugar? So they shouldn't make rockets. It's an issue, something to think about and talk about. It's these are the issues that we deal with on a daily basis. So in Israel, in Sderot, you can't use the Iron Dome. It's not going to protect us. It's not enough time for the intercepting rockets to get up there in the air. The state of Israel, the government has spent up to date $500 million to add protections, to give protections to the civilians of Sderot. So we're at the police station now. All we did is we turned our focus. We're looking across the street. And I'll give you a second. What can you pick out on this building, which is an addition to these buildings? Older buildings. If you look well, you'll see there's an addition. Where's the addition? Right over here. You can see that this box has been added onto the building. This is actually your bomb shelter. You can see over here, instead of the window, there's like a little metal plate, right? That's to make sure the shrapnel doesn't go through the window. So inside here is where you get the air into the room. But this is a bomb shelter. This was added on by the government to all the older houses. Houses nowadays are built with the bomb shelters. I have a bomb shelter right around, in my house. It's reinforced concrete with steel. But here you go. This is what the government's doing to help protect the civilians down in Sderot. Let's take a look at this one. This is really clear. Take a look. Over here, you don't see it. These are the older buildings built back in the 60s, like row houses. We were a poorer country, and they just put up quickly for the civilians, citizens, these rows of houses. And this is all added on. These are all bomb shelters. That's some things that we are doing over here in Sderot, and we're going to get back on the bus and just travel through. What happens if you, and these are, in Sderot, almost everybody knows okay, let's put it this way. Let's start like this. What happens if you're not inside your house and that siren goes off? You got 15 seconds to find some place that's going to be safe. It's really a challenge. There is a little bit, if you want to look on your own, I almost put it on, but it's pretty intense, and I held off on it. But you can look up on the internet. It's called 15 Seconds Sderot. Intense film, but it really brings to life what the challenge is. So here's again, and like I was saying, you talk about the South, and I'm staying off, we're going to talk about Jewish National Fund afterwards, but they come up all over the place. What this actually is, and here you could just see, I don't know if you could see here, this is a bomb, this is a bus stop. What happens if you're outside in Sderot, or if you're in between, you're going from town to town on that Gaza envelope? So you'll be inside, you'll be waiting for a bus in this bus stop. You're not protected. So what these are portable bomb shelters. In other words, you run in here, this is reinforced concrete, and you're safe. The Jewish National Fund has dropped these off all around your bus stations throughout the outlying areas from the cities. Painted. There's a project that you could do that you come and you paint to make them a little bit prettier, and you can find these all around the area. It's an amazing project. Flower motif per. Oh, here's the little blue pushka. Oh, we're happy. And you got like animal motif. And here's a cute family that came out for the day. Here's another cute family, in different poses of different bomb shelters, just to go through it. And this is something that we're trying to do. It's a challenge. Here, this is really cute bomb shelter that looks like a bus. So this is some of the things that's going on. It's just, this is like the lemon made into lemonade type of thing. We got a challenge. We try to figure out how we're going to do it in the nicest way possible. They're smiling. They're amazing. They're courageous. It's just amazing that people live there. And Sderot's continuing to grow. It's continuing to grow. Way back, I forget when this was, one of the first attempts also was to help out in playgrounds in Sderot. This is the famous snake, they call it the snake path, or the what would you call this kind of a thing, centipede. But this is a little park, and again, this is, little kids are able to, if the siren goes off and you're playing in the park, you can't get to home in time, so you go running into the park over here, and you go in a little bit. It's marked off how far you have to go in. This is reinforced concrete, and it can take a shrapnel or a direct hit as well. What I do when I have my birthright groups, I come here and I start talking to them on the other side of the park, and I say to them, at some point the siren's going to go off. I'm going to be the siren. You got 15 seconds to make it in, and you're not walking as college students. You're walking baby steps as if you're 6 years old. And I'm talking, and I go, okay, the siren just went off, and they have to try to make it inside. And it's really, really a challenge. They're courageous, the people Sderot, but just to be honest with you, a lot of the kids, it's not easy. It's really not easy. Some of the kids, they grow up with a lot of, they have trauma. Some of the kids do grow up with a lot of trauma. This is a situation in which, here we are, they're up on top, cute. This is a case in which, again, you visit Sderot, you come to the JNF indoor playground. The JNF, okay, you instead of having to be in a playground and run to the protection, maybe if we have an indoor playground, that would be just to give a place where parents could go with their kids and just feel like I don't have to be tense. So this was developed by the JNF. I think they spent, and you could correct me afterwards, or Kim will go on, way over $5 million in reinforcing an old industrial place. There's outdoors, you have the park, but you go inside, this is all indoors. You have places for the kids to play. It's like a little bit of a community center. You get music lessons. This is all indoors and protected. This is protected from rocket fire, climbing wall, computer stations. And this is all happening inside this huge indoor park, just to give a break. The parents can come with the kids and just have a place where they can breathe. So important, such a special thing. Again, our attitude, what do? This is called Yaron Bob. I think JNF sells his works, Rockets into Roses. What do we have here? Obviously, pieces of those rockets that are sent into Sderot. And this artist, Yaron Bob, here's a menorah. Look at, made out of, he says, I take the Qassam, the instrument of death, and I change it. I transfer it to something of beauty. And that's his art. And, beautiful statement. And here too, he sells these things. If you're in Sderot, this actually is straight up. You can see the rock. It's made into a Hanukkah menorah. Where are we right now? We just stopped off at the Yeshivat Hesder in Sderot. This is what the truth is. It's an old childhood friend. There's the fellow who runs this yeshiva. This is a yeshiva where the boys take time between learning in the yeshiva and also serving in the army. It's called Yeshivat Hesder. And the guy who runs this is a fellow named Fendel. His father was one of the first, one who established West Hempstead community. If anybody's from the New York area, Hebrew Academy of Nassau County, that was this fellow's father. So we know each other from childhood. He actually started this yeshiva. It's a yeshiva in Sderot, very, very involved with the community. It's just like such a nice thing when you have institutions that just are very much involved in Sderot. That's the kind of place. It's a very homey place. People have to be together. You have to have the unity of the Jewish people in order to be able to be strong enough to withstand, the challenges. And this idea again, you can shoot at us rockets that are symbols of death, and we will turn it into a Hanukkah menorah, something that's a symbol of light and of spreading light and spreading goodness, which is obviously part of a mission of the Jewish people. And that's the symbol on the top of this yeshiva. That's Sderot. That's Sderot today. Sderot's growing. The country has connected up the city with. It's almost like becoming like a suburb to Tel Aviv. You could get on the train, be in Tel Aviv in about a half an hour, and people are moving here because, first of all, again, periphery, you get nice housing for cheaper, but there's an understanding, I think, that you feel in the country that, hey, nowadays, first of all, missiles could get anywhere, but this is something that's really part of the Jewish people. We all feel connected and we're all in it together, no matter where you live. And the connection that we have, this is a JNF tour, the connection to Israel and the support of Israel, we all feel that we're in it together. So people in Sderot say, hey, it's not just up to the army, but it's we stand strong over here, because if we move away from the border, that piece gets lost to us. So that's a little bit about Sderot. Another Hebrew word of the day, hatmada, perseverance. Because we're now going to start traveling south along the border with Gaza, heading further south in the Gaza Envelope. And we're going to see not only people are courageous, but the idea of perseverance, of just being, we go and we go and we go. And then we see the fruits of our labors. So we're going to be over here at Sderot, run right along over here, and then we're going south. In 2000, what was it, 14 or 15, actually, in Protective Edge, 14. My son was in Golani, still is in Golani. He was someplace right about over here, I think. So my wife, Elisa, we never told her, Elisa always thought he's someplace right here. I used to say, don't worry, he's on the border, like they haven't gone in yet. But I knew already that he had entered into, it's not on the map here, Jabalia. Oh, Jabalia. I think it was, no, he's in Sajaria. And they were in. I remember that one time in the middle of that protective edge, he actually, all of a sudden surprised me. He was outside, he came home from work. He was just standing there. Whoa, it's like, it's some of these, feelings that are larger than life. I think I saw something online. I was looking at, is that Sharona or Kim, about grandchildren who are in the army? I don't know. I guess everyone's mute, but you'll talk about it later. But that feeling, so that's happening right over here. And so we're going to run along the border with Gaza. And I was there just last week. It's actually peaceful. When things are peaceful, it's very peaceful and beautiful areas. And we're going to go all the way down now. It's good things we have our passports with us. We're going to be on the border with Egypt. We're going down to Egypt. So there are 3 communities down over here, Shlomit, Neve, Bnei Nitzarim. The 3 of them, we call it the Chalutza area, like the pioneering area. And that's where we're going to go down. In 2005, when we left Gaza, and again, this is, people that were orange was the sign. These are people who left Gaza. A lot of them with that can-do, the perseverance, said, we're not going to give up. And then they just moved over. Again, look at this, just sand. It's just desert sand. These are the beginnings of Chalutza. These are prefabs just dropped off, and boom, they started to grow in the sand. They started growing hothouses. I believe that this picture is from a very popular place. Next time you come to the country, you could book yourselves into it. It's called Shvil HaSalat, the salad trail. It's in that area on the Egyptian border, and they just grow all kinds of, the idea of it is that here you can see, I think, the cherries, right? Our cherry tomatoes that they made in this country. And you go in and they talk about it and you pick it. You have peppers over there, all kinds of fun things. And it's a great thing, but you learn about what went on. Here's the famous cherry tomatoes that were made in Israel and all the other stuff over here. This fellow actually comes in, he lives in that area. I think he comes to the United States, I forget his name. And look at this, sand, they're standing in the sand and look at the green fields behind them. It's, you wouldn't believe it. Like if you didn't see it, you can't believe it. They have an esrog plant, an esrog plantation, nice green esrog. And here we go. Again, this agricultural feat of doing strawberries, but they're hanging from the ceiling because this way they have less bugs in them. It's much easier to sell. Not only easier to sell, but just more pleasant and not having to deal with bugs inside the vegetables. Here we got a medical center in that area. We saw about also down when we were yesterday in the Arava. This is a JNF Chalutza Medical Center, and they're working on it. A short, if it's okay, a short film about Chalutza, which is just meaningful and better. Seeing is believing. Just expresses what.
And I knew about the trees.
It says we believe in you. We are going to help you.
You can't take it for granted that Israel will always be strong.
Wanted to come here all over these years. This is like they say in Hebrew, Sofa Olam Smola. This is the end of the world left. This is here. Once we left Gush Katif, this was a very traumatic feeling. In 24 hours, we found ourselves with nothing. We made a decision that we're not going now to hotels to cry for a few months. That we want to see as fast as we can our new future. And when we came here for a tour before, there was nothing here. No electricity, no roads, no water, only sand and sand. That's what we found here. 2 weeks after we came out of Gush Katif, we started planting in our fields here. Without the help of the JNF, this would still be a desert. It did not only help us plant trees, they helped us build the entire community. We're talking about housing, schools, parks. These things were done only with the partnership and the friendship of the JNF. The percentage of the Jews living in the Negev is very, very low. But once we came here, another community came up and joined us. We were 20 families, now we are close to 100. And the second community here is also another 100. And these are things which happened here in the last 5 years. This is a miracle. We took on ourselves here in Chalutza a big mission. But this mission and this dream cannot become true without your help. This is the real dream of Ben Gurion that said the desert will become green. This is what is happening here. And we can see our lives, our families, and our communities grow here and continue our contribution to the state of Israel.
So that's an example of everything that's going on along that strip there of what's called the Gaza Envelope. Again, just amazing the strength of these people. And same thing we saw yesterday in the Arava, we're going to see in the north also, people are building. It's kind of like, look, nobody's dying from malaria, thank God, but in that area, you have to worry about the missiles. But that pioneering spirit and the strength and the perseverance of the Jewish people really, really just like unfolds in front of you. And you talk to these people, and it's like, hey, they're just regular people. Sometimes they're made from other stuff. I want to emphasize once more that, like they wrote, in all of those towns along the Gaza envelope are within the internationally recognized borders of Israel since 1948. So that's important.
And I knew about the.
All right, we cannot be in Israel. We're going to start heading north, leaving this area, stopping by Ein HaBasor, Why? Because you can't be in a tour of Israel without running into these guys along the ways. Okay, we have to see, and this is a place called, it's cute, it's Machlevet Camela. I could not find great pictures of them, but this is actually a camel milking farm, where they actually do, it's becoming popular that they milk camel, they sell camel milk. It seems like camel milk has a lot of nutrients involved, like 3 times the amount of vitamin C and 10 times the amount of iron than regular milk. A lot of benefits, nutrients, minerals. What they're doing though is research in this area to check out about, it seems that there could be derivatives from camel milk. First of all, this company actually produces also a lot of skin lotions. But there seems to be that it seems that there's certain things in camel milk which might be helpful for things such as medical purposes, such as Crohn disease and colitis, diabetes. So we'll see, continued research that we have on that. What we're going to do now is we're going to head up north. We're going to be going from Sderot. And tonight I decided that we did a lot of traveling throughout the country. We're going to land in Tel Aviv. We're not touring Tel Aviv because that definitely is on the beaten path, but you'll have an opportunity. Where we're going to be staying tonight, this is called the Satai. They have a number of hotels throughout Israel, very high class, 5-star plus. I thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to be staying in this hotel with you overnight. What's special about the Satai? This is on the border between Jaffa and Tel Aviv. And as you can see left over here, this stone wall is actually pretty old. It's Ottoman. The building itself is an Ottoman building. That means it could go back about 400 years. I'm not sure exactly how far back it goes. It used to be an Ottoman Turkish police station, then became a British police station. And here you can see the inside. This kind of structure, this kind of architecture is Ottoman Turkish. This building went into disuse from 1948 and onwards, was brought back into use when it actually housed Eichmann during the Eichmann trial. That's when they opened it back up. And then it was just in disuse until it was finally turned into this nice hotel. So you could spend your nights in this beautiful room looking out over the Mediterranean, or if you want to look towards the north along the coast, you got the beautiful coast of Tel Aviv in front of you. And I hope that you don't stay up all night. Oh, and of course, the infinity pool with the Mediterranean, you'll probably be there all night, unless you decide in the Israeli version of the city that never sleeps, that's being Tel Aviv. So at this point, you could have a good rest. Tomorrow, we're going to be heading up north. And what I'm going to do now is, I'm just going to see how we do this. Give me a moment. And boom. So there's a couple minutes, if there's any questions that anybody has at this point, I got 4 minutes left, and other than that, that's it for the night.
Okay. A lot of people were making comments regarding some of the places that we have visited. And so the latest one was, there's a very good and informative museum about the evacuation of the Gaza communities. It's located in Jerusalem on Agrippa Street. And also somebody, I think it was Nancy, who was talking about when we were down in, when you were talking about the rockets, that there was a music group that came out of that area. Are you familiar with it? Like a rock group? Rockets to rock music?
I'm not so familiar.
Okay.
What they do have when you do travel around, I forgot this.
Okay.
When you travel around Sderot, they have little traffic circles, roundabouts. It's become very popular in Israel.
We have them here too.
A lot of them, you have them together. Okay, so they're getting around. I guess they've done their research. On a lot of them, they do have little, there's a little drummer boy made out of leftover from missiles. Sderot does have some kind of connection to music festivals. just like up in Spot, we'll see tomorrow has their klezmer festivals. What I wanted to get a picture of, and I forgot, is that if you're going after the police station, when we were going from the police station to the little snake park, on one of the buildings, there's a big chamsa. And I wanted to take a picture for Kim that she should put it up on her wall because it's a big chamsa on the building. A lot of the State Road is what's known as an absorption town. Back in the 50s, you know, especially when we were getting in all the immigrants from the Arab town, early 50s. Look, the country started out with 600,000 people in 1948. Within the next year and a half or so, we absorbed another 1.5 million, another 700,000, primarily from the Arab towns. Jews had to run away. And we just had to find places for them. And a lot of these southern towns have original, like from different Arab different Arab countries. I think, and I could be off, I think that in Sderot you have Moroccan Jews. So thus you have a Khamsa on it, but that's the beginnings of these towns, and now they're just also blossoming. Everything's blossoming.
So Nancy was just reminding me that it wasn't just one rock group, but just like you were mentioning, that in that area there is a lively music scene, and it was the subject of a film and she listed it in the chat. And Alan Gale wanted everyone to know about the Great Dairy that's in Yotvata. What is it? Yotvata? How do you say that?
Yotvata.
Oh, Yotvata.
We actually stopped there yesterday. I mentioned it yesterday.
Oh, yesterday you did, very briefly.
That's the one I said that they not only make their own ice cream, but they also have the dates that are hanging from the trees on their kibbutzim.
Yes.
Great. Like, I'm a chocolate guy and I don't want to be disrespectful, but that date ice cream is a killer. So, you know, next time you're down in that area. All
right. So on that note, I want to thank you so much, Baruch, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Sign off, get a good night's sleep. And we can't wait to see you tomorrow. And Rabbi Rubenstein's reminding us that at that same place, there's a restaurant in Tel Aviv that has the date ice cream that they, I guess, bring it up to there to carry it. So on that note, thank you, Baruch.
All right, enjoy your snow, right? Snow is one of those things you never get. Well, if you're stuck outside, you would, but enjoy the snow. Good night, everybody.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
So in a minute, we're going to be hearing from Kim. But I do want to say one thing. For those of you who have not yet had the opportunity but would like to, we are asking people to consider tipping this wonderful tour guide. And there are three different ways that you can do this. You could send a check to the congregation Beth Ahm, and it should be made out to Congregation Beth Ahm Sisterhood. So that's one way. The second way is that you could call the office this week, Congregation Beth Am's office, and say you want to make a contribution, and the contribution should be for Sisterhood for the tipping program, and we'll make sure that happens. And you can use a credit card. And the third way is that we can have it done through electronically, and we will make sure if you call the office that happens. We have a Sisterhood co-president who will make sure all of that happens, and we just want to make it as easy as possible. 100% of the tips will be going to Baruch to thank him, since as he mentioned, it's been a rather dry year. Really in terms of where tourism is at, and he really appreciates it to be able to pay his bills, and he's doing such a wonderful job. On that note, please check the chat room. The rabbi and David is graciously putting the information about how to make a contribution towards the tipping. And at this point, I'm going to turn the program over to our wonderful JNF representative, the Midwest director. Kim, you're on.
Thank you so much. I feel like Baruch when he gets into the nervousness of the screen share. Okay, I'm gonna try and. Oh. Give me 1 second, guys. It asked me.
While Kim is making
I
that,
need
oh,
to
you're on?
I couldn't have done this earlier, so
Are you ready?
no, hold on.
Okay, so let me just say to you,
Wait, I'm not sure why it's not.
okay, well, we can see some of your slides.
What do you see right now? My background, or do you see a slide?
We see a slide
Oh, what does the slide say?
on the ground. Come home
Oh,
for a visit.
Perfect. Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Because in mine, it's still my Hamsas. I'm always the one that's coordinating this for everybody else and not worrying about it. I want to thank everyone for today and for yesterday and for participating this week. I was blown away by the amount of participation you have from your synagogue and the word of mouth that the virtual mission had within your community. Originally, when the quarantine started, and as Sharona said, these guys were out of work. We'll talk a little bit more about JNF's mission and vision, but it was something that we put together. We had not been doing anything like this before at all. And we wanted to be able to help compensate the guides for this loss in tourism. So today, and this slide shows you, because it wasn't my first one, but I wanted to include it today. There have been 128 missions. Most of them are about 25 to 30 people, which equals about 3,000 visitors. And they are going on across the country. Some right now, we have a special water mission that is going to desalination plants that have security clearances. If anyone's interested in that, you can go on our website or ask me. There's one in January, February, and March. That's happening during the middle of the workday, like at 11. But there are women's trips, there's fashion and arts trips, there's congregation trips, but 128 missions and over 3,000 people have participated in it. And as Sharona said, 100% of the money that we take in a Jewish National Fund for it goes straight to guides like Baruch and helps him to support his family. You heard him say, although he wasn't whining or complaining, his business is pretty quiet right now. So I can only imagine that. So much of what I want to share with you about Jewish National Fund is overwhelming, but also pieces of it we've been covering as we've been touring. So I want to try and not be repetitive. I am the executive director for the Midwest for Jewish National Fund. I think I said that yesterday. I've been with the organization for about 4 years and cover the Midwest area. I recently added Minnesota and Missouri to my portfolio with Michigan, Wisconsin. So I have that whole space, and the world of being virtual has enhanced my work a little bit, as we used to schedule partners from Israel to come to Detroit or St. Louis. And now I can conveniently do that with a Zoom call and hook up, different donors and contributors or interested people in a specific program like special needs from all across the Midwest. And more than that, we're able to do that virtually with the whole country. So many things that people are interested in can now be accessed virtually without having these individuals travel from Israel. I want to just start by welcoming everybody to the program. As I said, the Jewish National Fund. It's near and dear to my heart. I like to think of Jewish National Fund as a social service agency that is all of our programs and partnerships other than Israel Education are happening in Israel. So while your Jewish Federation is taking care of your elderly, your disabled, your hungry, food scarcity programs, within the Detroit metro community, as well as a portion of your annual campaign is going to Israel. All of our annual campaign is going to Israel. We are a 4-star charity navigator organization. We run it at about an 86% cost structure of dollars that are going to Israel. Our campaign year just ended and we raised almost $100 million, which is phenomenal. As I said, that is all going to our programs and partnerships in Israel. And it's from donors and contributors like you throughout the country. It's an annual campaign. We have various giving levels and societies that are recognized. We have very specific affinity groups for lawyers for Israel, doctors for Israel. We recently started real estate program for Israel. Our Women for Israel have unique programs that are for them. They have some fundraising projects that are specific women to women in Israel. And we also have a beautiful, for anyone on the line who has a child, a young adult, 25 to 40, our JN Futures program for young adults is wonderful and experiencing leadership opportunities. We do a lot with leadership training because we feel the future leaders of our Jewish heritage lies within this group of young adults, and all we can do to help them to become better leaders and engage them is very special and meaningful. Jewish National Fund, we touched on this a little bit yesterday, started in 1901 with the original pushki, where people started to gather money on the streets. One of your local Metro Detroit matriarchs, Florine Mark, tells a beautiful story of how her grandma on Sundays used to send her out to the street corner with her pushki to ask for money for Israel. And that is truly the vision. But today we are so much more than the blue box. And this man, Russell Robinson, has brought JNF into this $100 million campaign that I just described to you with his mission and his vision that I'm going to share with you in a little bit. But if you can see right here, we're about 700, we have a $1 billion roadmap of a fundraising goal, and we're $731 million into that at the end of our 7th year. So we are well on track to have raised $1 billion in 10 years, and it is incredibly exciting. We had some beautiful gifts from your local Metro Detroit area. At year end, you have some strong supporters within your Beth Ahm community, within your Detroit community that are helping us to achieve these kind of goals. But we're working piece by piece, dollar by dollar, whether it's planting trees at $18 a tree, which I'm hopeful that most of you have done or received, as well as joining some of these affinity groups at $1,000 annual gift or $5,000 annual gift. Jewish National Fund is a fundraising organization. I don't want to mislead anyone and let you think that there's a lot of things we're doing within the community, as I said, in Detroit or Milwaukee or New York. All of our work is being done in Israel. And the greatest thing I can ever tell you is not to sit with Baruch in front of our screens, but to travel to Israel and to experience Israel and see what we are doing on the ground there. It is incredible. I'm sure you looked at some of our highlights while I was speaking here, and I wanted to just tell you that our work doesn't happen by ourselves. We are in partnership with the state of Israel. We do a lot. We haven't talked about it at all so far on the trip, but if you remember today, seeing those little houses in Chalutza that Baruch showed, those are JNF homes. We have a community housing fund to help communities start homes. So to encourage people to move to these areas to help. He mentioned it perfectly. His kids were worried about the mortgage and the cost of it. And this allowed, JNF's housing fund makes it a little bit more affordable. So we are in touch with mayors. We meet on the ground with them there, with our people in Israel through our small office there to see what their needs are. And we don't do something in an isolated vacuum that we know isn't helping and benefiting the entire community that we're working with there. Jewish National Fund right now is working on two major visions that I told you Russell Robinson has, that we're in partnership with the entire country. One is our Blueprint Negev, and the other is Go North. These two initiatives look at people they've been going on for quite a little bit of time, and they look at the population density and say that 75% of the people in Israel are living on 25% of the land in this triangle between Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Haifa. So how can we populate that land and stake it as Jewish land, our homeland, a land that we want to preserve forever? And how can we help these people find affordable housing and jobs and make it appealing to them to move to these areas that we have seen in the Arava, in the Gaza envelope, the periphery where no one wants to live? But Jewish National Fund is working together to make that happen. It's a goal of ours, and we are constantly focused on that in the work that we do. To move to these areas, what do you need? You need good schools. You need medical facilities. We saw the medical facility in Chalutza yesterday. You need culture. We're looking at Beersheva, at the culture in the Beersheva area. What can we do? We saw the Louder Employment Center that helps people in Beersheva get jobs. It's in Beersheva where Ben Gurion University is, so that students who graduate from BGU can stay in that area and find a job. It's instrumental in keeping people connected to the community. But two huge, exciting, on the cutting edge of some of the work that we're doing are two big projects right now. One is the Galilee Culinary Institute, and that's going to be up in the Galilee. I'll show you in a few seconds. And the other is the Israel Education and Technology Campus that's going to be in the Beersheva area. So you've got to bear with me a little bit while I go through some of my notes when we're talking, so my eyes might not be there. The Culinary Institute is meant to be in Israel. There is not a culinary institute there. We are in the process of trying to combine the startup food scene, technology, agri-tech, all of these things within a campus in the Galilee. We have a chef, Lior Lev Sarkov, who is here in New York, who is going to be directing our Food and Innovation Center. It is going to cover topics like food scarcity, encouraging food, healthy eating and products, the way that we can do more things gluten-free, vegan-free. Farm to table is obviously a huge thing within that area. Within the Culinary Institute, there's going to be a restaurant, a bakery, a brewery, an organic farm, and there'll also be some wine tasting facilities there as well. And the concept is in one place to have something all combined that people can revolutionize. It will revolutionize the way we eat and live today. It'll help us to focus on healthier eating, cheaper eating, more environmentally friendly eating. And its goal is to truly innovate and put Israel on the map in this food spectrum. So we're in the early stages. We've recently started it physically, put the structure to place, and we're working with that area up in the Galilee. As I said, we've got the Beit Asher Food Center as well as the Culinary Institute. And if anyone is interested in learning more about the facility or what's going to be happening up there, feel free to ask some questions to me privately, or we can talk about it further maybe another night. The other that I showed you a little bit and said is in Beersheva, which we spent a lot of time today. Our new Israel Education and Technology Campus that we are committed to building there. JNF truly believes that Beersheva is not just the physical center of the state, but we want it to be, the capital of the country as far as things that are going on there, to connect what's happening in the Arava and down south and the Negev and the desert, so people don't have to travel quite as far. They can get a lot of the things they need without going all the way back to that epicenter as well. The concept for the Israel campus, the Technology and Education Campus, is a global, national opportunity to build bridges, to have conversations that will build bridges, amongst all denominations, all political streams, all generations. Within the campus, there's going to be a couple separate pieces. One is going to be an internship innovation program for kids that have already graduated from college. We will put together internships for them. They'll have a 6-month or a 12-month stint on the campus. There's going to be housing and dorms there. You can see them in the foreground. And that idea is one of the pieces. We also are going to have an adult education Zionist center there, a Zionist adult education center that different organizations can come and have an event there. We'll have a conference center. You can come and learn and connect with other people. You can bring, or can do something there for a 10-day stay or something like that. Again, the accommodations will be right there. We also are going to be building a second campus for our Alexander Muss High School in Israel on this same piece of property and land. And it will then be young adults and teenagers going to high school, college grads that are having internships, adults that are learning and, you know, having conversations together, multi-generations mixing together within housing structures. It truly is a global concept that we are excited to be bringing forth. And it's a $300 million project that we've just begun to, we've also started digging around on that. So those are two of our most exciting and cutting edge programs and partnerships that we have going on. I said earlier that I want to encourage you to always come to Israel, to visit Israel. I know that we have lots of people that are interested. JNF has many missions on our website. We have a sunshine mission that's supposedly going to run a couple of them late summer for people 55 and older that go at a little bit of a slower pace, and the day isn't quite as robust as us traversing across the country like we're doing with Baruch right now. If you're interested, again, you can go on our website and look at the missions or speak with myself. We've got some women's missions, some food, culinary related missions. We have a food and wine mission as well. But we also have our national conference coming up the first week of October, which will be a wonderful opportunity. It's the first time. We were going to have it in 2020 and we had to cancel, but we've, like so many things, moved it forward, and that will be happening the first week of October in Israel as well. I'm excited about it. I also wanted to just share one other opportunity that JNF has just started to roll out in the quarantine that's nice to support artisans and food startups and things like that that are up in the north. We haven't been north yet, but we'll see it. But this is our Mitzvah Marketplace, and we highlight products. If you go on the Mitzvah Marketplace, there are products from several vendors there that tell their story, as well as you can buy online their product. I can't find my notes, of course, but there's a woman who sells jewelry made from books, and you can share, she will share with you books, how people have come to her with a special book, a gift from someone of a special book, and the words and the meanings of the book, not necessarily religious, but it could just be a special book. People who love books, people who have something dear to their heart. She uses the pages from the book to make a necklace. There is some ceramic on there, a woman that has vision for different ceramic problems, their projects, different Judaica, the Kisher winery, you can be purchased from there as well. Check it out. We're proud of it. Again, it's our way of supporting people in these outside areas where we've suggested to people, please come and live. And we've said to them, there's a great quality of life there. And they themselves might find that they want to be pioneers in this area.
Okay, Kim, I want to say this is amazing. David Goodman just posted on the chat the email link, or the website linked in order for people to purchase items for the online Mitzvah Marketplace. We're starting to wind down, and Kim, this was phenomenal. I just want to urge people to visit the JNF, National JNF website, and you're going to see a lot of the things that Kim talked about. We'll have a chance to revisit with her on Thursday, where you can ask her questions about any of these programs that she mentioned. I want to urge you, because we've spoken about food quite a bit, that if you haven't yet, I want you to take a look at Dish Kosher Cuisine, Paul Wirtz's menu for this week, and order and support locally, but enjoy Israeli-style food from our caterer. And it was also posted on our chat line, so you can take a quick look at that, or you can call the synagogue tomorrow if you don't know how to contact our caterer. I also want to urge you to, when you come tomorrow, you're going to have a chance to meet a local guy who is from Israel. He's actually from Jerusalem, who decided that this community did not have good places to eat and to enjoy shakshuka. So he's started a business, and he has a truck that's called Shakshuka in Detroit. And he's going to come and talk to us a little bit about some recipes and sharing some information. And you should all be getting also an email from us with other recipes, as well as a reminder about what's going to happen for the remainder of the week, and the links to some of the programs that we've talked about. So, Rabbi Rubenstein, do you have anything before we close out? Anything you want to share? You can unmute yourself if you want.
Yes, I am. I would take 30 seconds to say that I've really enjoyed these 2 nights. I love being with people. And I would say that it really goes to show how important that time on the bus actually is. I'd love to be able to chat about all of this stuff, what we're learning, the ideas, the context of some of the things we've been seeing. I would love that opportunity. And we're not on the bus. We're actually on the screen. It's a bit sad for me, that part of it. But I love that we're going to have the opportunity at other times to talk about these things. So I'm so glad that you're with us. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night and the rest of the week. Thank you all for joining us. And we're going to say farewell, shalom, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Sure. Just a question. What are recordings of these?
Yes. Yes, Alan. The